Hello everybody, Tekking101 here. And this is going to be my Chapter 6 review of Zombie Powder. And the reason I decided to take a drink of water is because I'm filming this directly after I filmed my Chapter 5 review because I got behind on these and I kind of have to catch up. So this is like a marathon day of videos. I've already filmed like 2 Pokemon LPs today, and plus the Zombie Powder review I just did. Whatever. Let's get right into it. We have Chapter 6, and this Naked Monkey is a little bit differently, displayed in front of the other ones. Like I was going to say, like we're starting to run out of actual characters we can have, profiles for. Like we already did Gamma, Elwood, and Smith, the main characters. We did Elwood's sister last chapter. So I'm like, who else is there? Well, this time we get Naked Monkey's demo version, and instead of actually featuring a specific character, this is talking about how Kubo originally wanted the series of Zombie Powder to be, or what his original thoughts of it were before it became the Zombie Powder that I'm reviewing right now. And this is really interesting because I'm just gonna give you an abridged version of this. But the way Kubo apparently designed this initially, like remember the guy was probably like a little bit out of high school or maybe still in high school when he designed this series. So these are probably like cliff notes or footnotes he made back then. So the first thing you might notice is we get a cool looking badass version of Gamma, and this is apparently what Gamma was supposed to look like when the chapter first started. And Kubo even notes that his actual appearance in terms of his body and his hair, that doesn't look too differently. He still has, the thing on his face. He still has his awesome sword, but his like clothing and even the sword look a little bit differently. And again, Kubo brings this up. He's like, this is the original idea of his chainsaw sword, but he looks at it and just like, by this design, if you would rev up the engine, the whole sword would like vibrate because it has like a massive freaking exhaust pipe just sticking out of it, like the guard. And I brought this up when he first used it. Like that thing has to vibrate like a son of a bitch when you use it. Even the current version has to be crazy. Like you can't just, it has a motor in it. You can't just be holding and swinging a thing that has a motor in it without some kind of, vibration there. Good vibrations. He also brings up, though, the original concept of the story was not going to be called Zombie Powder. It was going to be called Samurai Drive, which is also a very kick-ass name, by the way. And he also states that it wasn't even supposed to be a Western. It was supposed to be like a samurai, like Edo period type deal. And the only similarity that Gamma was going to have now is that he would have an absurdly high amount of bounty on his head. But other than that, it would be completely differently. It wasn't supposed to be a Western. There weren't Rings of the Dead in it. There was no zombie powder. So I don't know exactly the story of exactly how Kubo went from this Samurai Drive story to Zombie Powder now, or how it became a Western. He even brings that up. It's just like, at the end, it kind of devolved, what are you saying, into a Western. I like Westerns, too, and I love samurai movies, too. Seven Samurai, whatever, I love that shit, so either way, if this ended up being a samurai story, I would have probably loved it just as much, if not better, but, Westerns I'm cool with. Westerns are freaking epic. So, moving on to the first page of the chapter, we continue from where we left off with Gamma just like basically starting a fight with this Ranewater Calder, the leader of this Ash Daughter gang, who may or may not have a dick. I'm not really sure. But anyway, so he's holding the sword right at her throat. I'm just going to keep calling her because that's what I've been doing up to this point. Right up to her head, and just like, get up. I want to, you say your strength is so great. Get up, and I'm going to show it to you, like from last chapter. So then we get the title page, which is just, it has Gamma, Smith, and Elwood, and they're just all wearing formal clothing, and they're all just like posing together for like, I don't know, like a photo booth in the mall or something. I don't know. And then we get Track 6, Deceiving Jet Joe. That's a cool name, Deceiving Jet Joe, whatever. So, so Ranewater immediately goes into like her like it was funny, like she started off, when she was being ambushed, like when she was ambushing the gang, it was just like, he's like, oh, I'm so helpless, I can't move, and then she's just like, die, everybody die, and now she's trying to do a complete 180 and go back to the just like, oh, mister, that was just a joke, you hit me on the head. Gamma's just like, fuck this shit. You're not getting me on that a second time. So he just like swipes at her feet. She jumps and avoids it. I will admit, Ranewater would be a lot more limber than, Gamma being just much more smaller and petite in size. So, she takes out her scimitar and swings it. But then we get this where Gamma calls him a guy. He's like, for a guy like you to leave an opening from something like this, don't make me laugh. So I guess it's a dude. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this could just be a translator thing, but I don't want to skip ahead. I don't want to skip ahead and find out. So, you know what? For all intents and purposes, I'm just going to... I'm just going to call him a guy, all right, because Gamma called him a guy. I'm just going to call him that. I'm just going to take Gamma's judgment here and just call Rainwater a guy. All right, there we go. All right, so Rainwater, strikes, Gamma's sword with his scimitar, and Gamma just kind of flicks him away and says, there's no way you can hurt me with that. I could keep dodging that in my sleep. Your sword skills are just so predictable. So, he comes at him again and he tries to kill him, and Gamma's just like, no, you don't understand. It's not just because you're weaker than me. It's because there's a limit to sword pressure based on your weight, which makes sense. I mean, somebody that's 300 pounds and swings a freaking Buster Sword is probably going to do a lot more damage than a 100-pound, like me swinging a Buster Sword. I mean, that's just how that works. This guy, Rainwater Calder, it doesn't matter how crazy he is from killing people. He can be the most psychotic son of a bitch on the face of the planet. He's still, very petite and very tiny. He wouldn't be able to, actually, even if he were to hit dead on this scimitar right on Gamma's body, you think it wouldn't really cut him that deeply, considering the guy took like a bullet from Smith a couple chapters ago, and that did it fine. So Rainwater is just like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right about that, but, and then he holds up the sword right over Gamma, flicks a switch, and then just like the jets, this is really cool. There's like up to this point there were like little ornamental like exhaust ports on the scimitar, and I thought they were just decorative. I didn't think they were really for anything. Those were like jet engines, or like they're I don't know what they're like. I guess just exhaust or engines or whatever. So he clicks this button. And like there's like all these four like exhaust ports like ignite at the same time and just like sends this guy spinning like a freaking top directly in Gamma's direction, and strikes Gamma with this sword moving at like I don't know how many freaking speeds. Like it's got to be probably close to like 300 or 400 miles an hour, because this guy got sent like spinning like a top, and I don't know how he's not like dizzy as hell. But strikes Gamma. Gamma blocks it with his sword, but the pressure from this sword is so intense, like it starts pressing Gamma's feet into the ground, like it starts breaking apart the floor. And then I guess like he continues to move faster and spins right past him, manages to cut Gamma's left arm using this ability. And, Rainwater stands back up and just like, oh, you couldn't dodge it then. There isn't a single person in the world that can dodge my Jet Ripper. Okay, fucking awesome name for a sword, I will give you that much. So then we get a closer look at it, and I see how kind of it functions. Like maybe you put like the fuel in the hilt, and then it sends like pressure through these it sends like it's like a car exhaust. I'm trying to come up with a good name for it. Exhaust, vent, engine, something motor, I don't know, something like that, starts this sword up and it just sends him flying off, and I don't know how he doesn't manage to get massively dizzy like a freaking tornado whenever he does this. He calls himself like, I'm the spin boy. I'm like, okay, whatever. So, this basically how this battle continues for a while, him just constantly doing the spin thing, and I keep saying he manages to do like some really cool Matrix shit too at some point. Like at one point he does this completely backwards, like a flip reverse where he like hits Gamma like from underneath, and he blocks it. Like he's doing a pretty good job at blocking all the sword swings, but these attacks are obviously have so much pressure behind them. Gamma's, every time he blocks them, he's still getting knocked back. It's not damaging his sword or anything, so that's a plus. So Elwood and Smith are just watching this. They're not doing anything, and Elwood, of course, I understand why he's not doing anything, but what's with Smith? Smith could obviously just, like, pull out his freaking gun and probably shoot this guy right in the head, while, distracted. But, Elwood's like, why aren't you gonna help him? And Smith's just like, no, I'm not gonna help him. Because basically it's just that he doesn't understand the difference between helping in a situation where, where it's not wanted and it is wanted. Like, Gamma's just, he's basically stupid like that. But Smith says to him, and Elwood's, of course, just like, but he's gonna die, and Smith just looks at him and just like, no, he won't die. Just trust me. He's got this covered. And he says, at least for somebody with a poor imagination like me, I can't ever imagine Gamma losing. And Smith is saying this in his very upbeat tone here. And he starts asking Elwood a question that actually makes a lot of sense. He asks, like, wait a second, Elwood, don't you think it was a little bit odd how apparently this child, like boy, girl, whatever, like the body type of a child, became the leader of this massive criminal syndicate known as the Ash Daughter Gang? I mean, obviously, a little kid wouldn't be able to become a criminal syndicate leader. That's just not how it works. And he also says that he called you, Elwood, and Gamma young kids, or kids. And Smith is just like, wait a second, could this be? So he's like trying to piece it all together, exactly what's going on here. And Smith eventually shouts over to Ranewater, like, wow, you stir are strong, old man Calder. And he calls him an old man. And, so he looks over and he's just like, what the fuck did you just say? And Smith is like, that body of yours, you're retaining your youth with Phoenix Semen. I could make a joke about that, but I'm not going to. Okay, so there's this thing called Phoenix Semen, and I guess what it is, I guess it's kind of like a man-made version of the Fountain of Youth, or it's like a chemical that is produced by mankind artificially that basically preserves the youth in somebody. Although Ranewater does admit that, yeah, it can preserve my youth, but I had to take like a triple dose of it, and I had to take way more than the average person can handle, and apparently if you stop taking it, the effects will weaken, and you'll go back to being old again. And the effect will completely disappear. So basically, he's a druggie, essentially. Like, he's like shooting himself up with his Phoenix Semen stuff to retain his youth. But at the same time, like, if he stops taking this, he'll just regress back into, being an old guy, I guess. But at any rate, though, he doesn't really seem to care. Like, he tells them all of this. He tells them all about the Phoenix Semen. He tells them all about, I had to take this many dosages of it. And he tells them all of this because he realizes, well, I'm already beating the crap out of Gamma. I just knocked that fucker into a wall. Like, there's nothing you guys can do. After I take out Gamma here, I'm gonna, turn my Jet Ripper on you guys, and you're all gonna be dead at the end, and then I'm gonna go and reclaim the zombie powder, and then I'm going to be immortal forever, so it doesn't really matter in the end of the day. So that's his plan. And Smith is just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Hey, Gamma, did you hear that? And Gamma is like against the wall, and he's knocked out apparently. Well, he thinks he's knocked out, and Ranewater is just like, what are you shouting at him for? And Smith is just like, well, you see, Gamma is a strong dude, but he does have one weakness. He's much more softer on women and children. Makes a lot of sense given the fact of what we've seen with Gamma and Elwood's relationship so far. But Smith also brings up the fact, like, didn't you notice that Akutaba Gamma, the guy that has the armored right black arm that, he can like punch a wall apart in thousands of pieces, he's fighting you with his left hand. And Ranewater is like, oh shit, he's right. So, turns around, Gamma's like standing back up. He's alright. He's bleeding from his face a little bit, but he's just like, you better start praying. Your punishment will be painful, old man Calder. End of the chapter. So, up to this entire point, the entire length of the chapter, Gamma was just playing with this fool. Like, he wasn't even trying. And it's because, soft on women and children, which I don't know if that implies a woman or a child. I don't know, but I hopefully we'll get some insight of whatever. But going beyond the whole gender identity crisis at the moment, I figured this character, like, even though he might have gotten like the upper hand against Gamma for a little bit there, I knew that Gamma wouldn't lose. I mean, main protagonist of a story. We haven't really even seen him in a serious fight yet. This is like the first serious fight that Gamma's ever been in. King Cuero didn't count. Those two thugs from Chapter 2 certainly didn't count. Smith didn't even count, really, because they were his partner at the end of the day. That was the closest to a real fight we ever got. But this is the real fight between an enemy that, Gamma's just like, you're the enemy, I'm the good guy, you're standing between me and my goal, the Ring of the Dead, I gotta freaking kill you. Or at least I gotta knock you out. I mean, given Gamma's itinerary, he's not against just cutting a motherfucker in half, like we've seen with, half the people on that bus and that thug he just bifurcated in half. So, Gamma's not against just flat out killing people. But yeah, so that's the end of Chapter 6. Next chapter, I'm hoping maybe Gamma finally turns the tables here and finally finishes this off, or maybe, maybe just like, okay, I'm switching hands, all right, you're dead, all right, let's go get the Ring of the Dead, Smith, Kelwood, let's get the hell out of here. So, yeah, we didn't get any information this chapter either about why Smith was all freaked out last time. He was, like, tripping over that. He was just like, well, I gotta get out of here before a certain time, so I don't know. But that's Zombie Powder, chapter number 6, Deceiving Jet Joe. Hope to catch you back here for the next one. This is also a next chapter review I got done in 14 minutes. I'm so happy about that. This was mostly a fight scene, so it wasn't like a lot of heavy crap going on. It was mostly just the fight scene. But I hope you enjoyed regardless. Tekking signing out. See you guys.